Doc, let me quote from one of your Easter Sunday sermons. You said that the resurrection of Jesus was not a metaphor. It was a historical reality. How important is this reality of the resurrection to the Christian faith?
The fact of the resurrection has been debated from the day one. The chief priest had to bribe the guards to tell a different story, no matter how illogical that story was, that his disciples took his body. Disciples who were running away, who were afraid, will overcome a Roman guard. And a Roman guard is not one person. It will probably be about 300 people that will form a guard. A guard is a military detachment. And they were there, and these disciples would go and overcome a Roman guard, snatch his body, totally illogical. So it was debated from then. And people still debate. And the reason we debate is nobody dies and gets up, and lives forever. It's not human. But Jesus is not just human. He's God amongst us. So we cannot equate human stories with the story of Christ. We cannot say, this is how human beings have lived, and must be how Jesus lived. Jesus is a unique one entity, never ever seen, never ever will be seen. So how do we know the resurrection took place? I mean, somebody will say, we're all not there. But, the disciples of Jesus preached it with a lot of confidence. And not only were they preaching with confidence, almost all of them who preached that message at the point of death affirmed that message. They were beheaded, they were burnt alive, they were cut into two, they were eaten by lions, they were gored by bulls, their families were killed in front of them, and none of them at any point said, oh, by the way, I think that resurrection story really is not true. Because why would people jeopardize themselves at this level if they felt what they believed was wrong? All they needed to do was recant, but they didn't recant. And throughout the ages, people have held their faith in the face of the most gruesome persecution. And the core of it is that Jesus died and Jesus rose again from the dead. Now, I am living 2,000 years away from that testimony. How can I trust something that happened? I mean, if I read the story of Julius Caesar, I'm supposed to believe that there was a guy called Julius Caesar and so on and so forth, although he lived earlier than Christ, or Caesar Augustus, or any of these historical figures. Where is the vouch? Who vouches for their story? For Jesus, there are people who died for that story. They died for the story. They believed in it so much and never recanted. And if you want proof of the historicity of the resurrection, it is the story of those men and women who saw something so real that they were ready to die for it. And remember, Jesus resurrected and showed himself to more than 500 people. So there were 500 eyewitnesses. This is not mass hallucination. This is individual encounters and mass encounters and group encounters. And all of them believed. And we have to also understand that the gospel accounts are very real. It tells us when people believe and when they don't believe. Even when Peter didn't believe, the gospel tells us Peter didn't believe. When the women told him, Thomas said, I cannot believe except I touch him. So you see the dynamics of humans who have been presented with a story that doesn't make human sense. And everybody doubting and struggling to come to faith that this thing has happened. And eventually seeing enough evidence by their interaction with him after the resurrection that he truly resurrected, and dying for that. And that is how our faith can be deeply anchored in Christ, that Jesus who died rose again from the dead. And that is the story, the greatest story of humanity.